Welcome back, everybody, and today we're going to be making a two-piece bluegill swim bait. Now, I've been wanting to make one of these ever since I started making lures a couple years ago, and I thought this would be a perfect time to do it since I've been on kind of a swim bait kind of kick with making that three-piece creek chub not too long ago and a two-piece not too long ago before that. So it should be a lot of fun, so let's get started. So before we get started with this lure, I thought I'd just explain what we're going to be doing for it. So at the front here, we're going to have carved gills. We're also going to have panpectoral fins on both sides, along with a dorsal fin and also a tail fin, both made out of Lexan polycarbonate, which if you don't know already is a really thin durable plastic that we're going to be using for our fins, along with what I also use on lips for other lures. So we're also going to have lead spread throughout all the bottom of this lure, just to make sure that it has an even sink and also stays steady in the water. We're also going to have a line tie in the front, along with the front hook hanger and a tail hook hanger, along with the middle joint here to make this a two-piece swim bait. And then we're also going to have to cut that dorsal fin there, just that way it'll allow the lure to move with that middle joint. Should be a lot of fun, and let's finally get started. I've really been loving reading you guys' comments and the cool ideas that you all have. Please don't shy away from leaving more comments and different ideas, even on how I can make my YouTube videos even better, and also lure builds that I should do in the future. I definitely love reading them, and definitely brightens up my day to see what you guys have to say. So thank you guys so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of the video. So that's what we're looking like right now with the basic shape. As you guys saw there, I cut out that slot there for the tail fin. And then I think the next step is to cut out the dorsal fin slot and make sure that we have that all aligned for where the joint's going to be cut. And then we can cut out all the fins and everything, get those all ready to be set up. And then I think I'm just going to start the joints and then work on figuring out where that dorsal fin and the joints will collide, just to make sure that we cut it at the right spot. So that's what it's looking like. So I'm actually going to get the fins all set up here before we add the slots, just so that way it's easier to align how long the top dorsal fin slot should be. Here's the fins all finished up. So far I sanded it quite a bit. Add a little bit of details of the spines there on the top dorsal fin along with the tail fin. So those are coming together pretty well. So now it's time to cut the joints and the slots. So to make my fin slots, normally I just use these handy little knives here, and I just go along there and make sure that I have the right size gap to be able to fit this fin, and then I also clean it up a little bit with this small tip Dremel bit. First, I start the fin slot by scoring the line. After scoring where the line was, I then go to a sharp tip blade to be able to widen the walls so that way the Lexan fin will fit. So there's the start of the joint, and I decided to glue in the dorsal fin there, just that way it'll be a little bit easier, because when I get to it with the saw, I'll just cut through it. So that's what it's looking like. Alright, so here are the lines all marked out for where we're going to be carving. All the gill plates and also the mouthpiece there. So we'll try our best here and try to make it look as realistic as possible, but let's get it carving. So we're just going to start by scoring the outline of where we're going to be carving the gills. Next step is just go along the sides and lines that we just did, and just kind of go like this. We just kind of wedge out pieces of wood and then pop them out just like that. So I'll take out little pieces bit by bit, and then we'll sand it up, and it should look hopefully pretty neat. So let's get started. Sometimes when I carve the gills of lures, I just use a Dremel bit because it's pretty time efficient and also is pretty easy to use. But for a more complex gill structure like this, I like to stick with the knives because then I can get all the nooks and crannies needed to make this look realistic. Alright, so here it is right now. I just finished cutting the joint there. I sanded that up a little bit, cleaned it up just in the inside there. And I also added the front line tie, the rear hook hanger, and got it almost ready to be coated in polyurethane just to seal it up. But I still want to sand the gills a little bit more. and then we should be ready to seal with polyurethane, and then we can get to testing, which should be pretty fun. So stay tuned, because painting should be pretty awesome as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and there's where we are. All right, here's test number 1. All right, so it's floating, and it seems to be leaning right a little bit. I'm not sure if that's probably just because that's the way the tail is leaning. But I just put in some part-time joints here, and I haven't glued them in yet. So I add the hooks as well. Saw a couple comments that would be a good idea to add as much as I can, just to make sure that the measurement's more exact, so that way I can tell how this is going to work and sync better. So thank you for all those comments. Those definitely help. So I think I'm just going to add a little bit more to the front there, and then we should be pretty good. All right, so now test number 2. I added maybe 5 more on the front there, and I think that's perfect. I'm just going to leave it like that. It's floating the right way. I'd probably say just the fin and maybe a couple millimeters the wood are still sticking out. So that's going to be perfect, because by the time we add everything else, it should be able to balance out pretty well. And maybe it'll just be a big glide bait. I'm not sure quite how this action will be yet, but looks pretty good. Looks like it wants to glide right now, but that's awesome. All right, I think we're pretty good. So here it is. Last step to do before painting is to add another coat of polyurethane, just to make sure that it's really durable and also really smooth, so that way we have the best possible paint template to be able to work on. So that's what it's looking like. I'm really excited for the paint scheme. I have a couple cool ideas that should end up looking pretty neat. So there we are. To start off the painting process, we started with a yellowish gold color, then brown, and then green on the top. After that, we started with some scales with some chartreuse green color here, and then we moved on to black going towards the back of the lure, just to add a kind of cool effect to the top scales. As you can see here, our next step was adding some stripes on the side with some pearlized black, and then the next step was to add some more scales with some pearlized white all over the body, and then some gold on the top, which I think added a pretty cool effect with the contrasting colors and the scale pattern. And of course, you can't forget about the orange belly and the bluegill. So that's the next step that we add to this lure. And then after that, we add some natural looking green to the top and also around the eye sockets. I think the counterbalancing worked pretty well. It's moving fairly slowly, and sometimes it has a quick spin like that. But other than that, it has a really slow rotation there, and they ended up really cool. So thank you to all the people that commented about trying to counterbalance. That definitely was a really good idea, and I think it ended up working out pretty well. Alright, before we test it, let's put it in the tank here. Alright, so as you can see there, it floats. It does float the correct way, which is good. Mainly, I'd probably say the fins are obviously out of the water, along with maybe a centimeter of the top there out of the water, just on the head side. It's a little tail heavy, but overall that is pretty good. I wasn't sure if it would end up being more like a glide bait or a swim bait that's more suspended, but this is pretty awesome. I can't wait to be able to use that. I've always wanted to have a big glide bait to be able to use for the summertime or time to get a really big bass on, so this should be really cool. Alright, let's test it out. Alright, so if you guys didn't see the video of the Creek Chub, I explained a little bit there on what this thing does, and basically it's just a current machine for aquarium tanks, and it works pretty cool for certain lures whenever I want to test them out. And currently where I live, it is really cold, so it's hard to be able to go out to a pond that's not frozen or that's not really cold outside to be able to test out lures, so we're going to be using this one. So obviously this is no replacement for being able to test in a pond. I'm still trying to figure out all the kinks in this process, but it works alright, but it pushes to the side or not sometimes, and sometimes it just wants to push the lure a weird way just because the current's coming from one specific point. It's not like a stream where the entire stream has a current. So it is a little weird, and it's really hard to be able to show how the action is. But during the spring and summertime, we're going to be able to test out all these lures I make during the wintertime. And it should be a lot of fun to see how they work. And we'll probably, hopefully, catch a couple fish with them. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that coming up in a couple months. But yeah, pretty cool. There it is, the finished bluegill swim bait, more like glide bait as you guys saw by the action. But this was so much fun to make, and I definitely enjoy making all these big lures, and they're always fun with the process and the different details that you can add that sometimes you can't on smaller lures. So if you guys have any cool tips or tricks or ideas you'd like to share, definitely let me know down in the comments. I'd love to read them. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for sticking with me till the end, and we'll see you in the next one.